What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Chill, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the July 26, 2021 edition of Raw Talk. So, like I said during my Talking Smack review this past weekend, it looks like it will be permanent unless something changes in the coming weeks after they kind of get used to being back on the road and whatnot. It looks like it's going to be a permanent move to the studio for Raw Talk and Talking Smack both, unfortunately. I really like the original format with Kayla and Kevin Patrick, and not so much R-Truth, not because I don't like R-Truth, but just because in that analyst role, he wasn't really as serious as he should be. Although, now watching these shows, I honestly kind of prefer Truth because it was a nice change of pace from the norm. Given the current format, they're doing all of the same stuff they were doing originally, but just a lot more recapping and a lot less of the talent interviews. And we still get the talent interviews. On this show, we heard from Rhea Ripley. We heard from, who else did we hear from? Damian Priest we heard from, as well as, I think there was someone else, wasn't there? There was Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest, and the other person was, AJ Styles and Omos. So we still get to hear from the talent, but the interviews are so short. They're like maybe max 2 minutes, maybe more than that. That's about, 8 to 9 minutes of the show. 6 to 9 minutes of the show is kind of focused on the interviews, and the rest of it, which is like another 15 minutes, is all recaps and replays and advertisements and all this other pointless garbage. And we've gotten that on Raw Talk and Talking Smack before, but they did the bare minimum. And now all it is just pointless analysis from Kayla Braxton and Matt Camp, who I like both of them, but I don't know, it's just not the same. And I've said this before, but if I wanted that pointless WWE narrative as far as like their analysis, which isn't terrible, I would watch the fucking pre-shows or the bump, and I don't watch those shows because I don't give a fuck what these people who work for the company have to say about their own product. You know what I mean? It's all the generic bullshit, like, they have to overcome this challenge. Like, it's just that kind of dumb narrative that the company does on their own talk shows. They very rarely actually criticize the product or like, hey, this probably isn't that good or stuff like that. They don't even give their opinion, which I understand. It's supposed to be, it's not like they're supposed to give their opinion. They're just kind of supposed to analyze and offer whatever, like background information. I get it, but it's just not very interesting to watch in a show like this that was originally more about the talent than it was about the co-hosts. But I thought they did a decent job here. To kick off the show, they recapped Charlotte and Nikki A.S.H. from the main event of Raw, which was a good match. The ending made absolutely zero sense to me. Charlotte winning wasn't the worst thing, but like, you give Nikki A.S.H. this aggressive push, and I like Nikki Cross a lot. I don't like the superhero shtick. But if you're gonna do it, you gotta book her accordingly. I'm not even saying that Charlotte should lose every match, and granted, she just did win at Money in the Bank, so it's not like she's lost every match that she's had lately. But if you're going to do this with Nikki A.S.H. and really present her as the threat, that's what you got to do. It felt like she did a lot more talking on Raw this week than she did actually backing up her words as this believable champion. The WWE booking of underdogs is so fucking bizarre to me, and they do this from time to time where they actually get it right, but there's been a lot of times where they book the underdog champion, and they book them to lose more often than not. CM Punk in 08, Rey Mysterio in 06. How many fucking times have we seen this where they book these champions to look like shit, and they never win whenever it matters most? And Nikki A.S.H., like I've said before, isn't really much of a superhero when she can't win clean. She cashed in a briefcase on someone that was already beaten in Charlotte Flair, that was already beaten down by Rhea Ripley. She won the women's Money in the Bank ladder match by sneaking up on her opponents. She hasn't really done anything overly superhero-like so far, and I think Monday proved that. And again, it's not my knock on Nikki Cross herself, but like the booking of her character to me is just bizarre. And Camp says going into next week's rematch between Charlotte and Nikki, Charlotte's got to be the favorite, having beaten Nikki clean on Monday's Raw in the main event. They also recap Sheamus and Priest in a championship contenders match that was won by Priest. We'll hear from Priest a little bit later on. They also talk about Styles and Omos successfully retaining one more time the Raw Tag Team titles against the Viking Raiders in what I thought was a good match. And they think that they sent a message to Riddle with that win on Monday night that they are to be taken seriously. And Matt Camp says that Riddle's all alone. Randy Orton has been nowhere to be seen now for over a month, and I thought Monday would have been the perfect time to bring him back. They were in Missouri. He's from St. Louis. I thought that would have been the perfect place for Orton to return. He didn't. So hopefully next week in Chicago. So they interviewed AJ Styles and Omos. Did, who was it? Sarah Schreiber, I think. Sarah interviewed both And then Kevin Patrick talked to Damian Priest, and then later on, Rhea Ripley talked to Sarah Schreiber. So Sarah Schreiber did this interview, and they asked what the motive was there. No, Kevin Patrick was, I think. I think he was the one interviewing AJ and Omos. He had said, what's the motive here, guys, for why you did what you did to Riddle and why you went after him? He's like, there is no motive, AJ said. I just don't like the guy. And they talked about how he had a sweet tooth or something like that. Maybe there was a comment made on Raw as to why they were talking about candy here, but Omos said he likes Swedish fish, for anyone that was wondering. They broke the scooter of Riddle's because they could. That's why Omos did that. And Styles says that he's the best, and Omos can be great if he wants to. And that was pretty much it. The only thing I don't like about these interviews, well, the biggest thing I don't like about these interviews, is that there really is no additional analysis from the talent. They kind of make these generic remarks, which they would make on Talking Smack and Raw Talk anyway, but like they would do it for maybe a minute or two before really like buckling down and getting to like the meat of the conversation. Sometimes it was generic all the time, but sometimes you would really get to know the talents or have them be entertaining or whatever. And they were entertaining in the minute or two that we heard from Styles and Omos here, but it was so brief, it was really kind of hard to pick anything away from that interview, and that's kind of the norm now for these shows, unfortunately. They recapped Drew McIntyre beating Veer by disqualification, even though it was Veer that got kicked in the head with the chair, even though it was in his hands. McIntyre kicked him in the head with the chair in front of his head, so I don't know how that works exactly. But Kayla says that she's going to chant, Drew is going to kill you any chance she gets, because, she loves to chant, I guess. They talk about how Drew is currently taking out his frustrations on not being able to go for the WWE Championship as long as Bobby Lashley is champion on Jinder Mahal by attacking him and his boys and the lawyer and all this other stuff. And Matt Camp says that Mahal better watch out because McIntyre right now is more frustrated and motivated more than he's ever been, so we better watch out for Drew McIntyre. And they also say that it's about time that Damian Priest is wearing Raw gold. Of course, he's a former NXT North American champion, but he's yet to hold gold on Monday Night Raw, and he's now one step closer to doing so, having knocked off Sheamus in non-title action, a championship contenders match on Monday's Raw. And he had talked about that these are the matches that Sheamus should be having. Matt Camp says this, and he probably wouldn't admit it because, he just got beat by Damian, but he wants to have these hard-hitting physical matches, and that's exactly what this was on Monday between him and Damian Priest. They very much enjoyed their match. So Priest is interviewed by, I believe, Kevin Patrick, and Priest talks about his goal entire time on Raw. As he's said, he has said this many, many times. He has said this to me before when I interviewed him right after WrestleMania, that his goal is for his name to live forever. And he's now one step close to doing just that now that he's beaten the United States champion in a championship contenders match. Winning that title is the next step in his journey to being remembered forever and having his name live in infamy or whatever. He loved wrestling in front of a crowd for the first time on Raw. Obviously, he wrestled in front of a crowd in WWE at WrestleMania, but for the first time on Raw, that was the first crowd that he's wrestled in front of on the show itself. And the crowd was into it, which was cool. He also talks about his history with bullies, being from the Bronx, and how he's always dealt with bullies his entire life, and how Sheamus is no different. And Kevin Patrick says, well, you mentioned you were from the Bronx. Have you ever known what it's like to grow up in Northern Ireland and deal with someone from over there? And he's like, I do, and Sheamus isn't even the worst. Not even the worst. I have met tougher men than him. I have met tougher people than Sheamus from that area, and the man Becky Lynch being one of them, which they keep getting more frequent and frequent with these Becky Lynch name drops, which tells me that she's definitely on her way back sooner rather than later. Maybe not for SummerSlam, but maybe right after SummerSlam. That looks like right around the time that she might be back in WWE. But he says that he works hard so he can live harder, and he promises to be the next United States champion. They go back to the studio. Matt Camp talks about Lashley's big win in 2-1-1 handicap action against Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin, his former Hurt Business buddies. And he says that Bobby Lashley right now is training for all challengers, but if he does indeed accept the challenge from Goldberg, he's going to be ready for him to come SummerSlam. And he also says that Charlotte proved why she is the best with her win over Nikki in the Raw main event on Monday night. And they interview Rhea Ripley, Sarah Schreiber does, and Ripley says that she's excited to get another shot at the Raw Women's Championship as was made official on Raw at SummerSlam. She's also happy for Nikki. She's always believed in herself. She's a hard worker. She's a likable person, but it's Rhea Ripley's time right now. And she also talks about how Charlotte doesn't have the greatest luck in triple threat matches. And I like the Rhea. Actually, I'll go back to the triple threat line in a second when we get to the end of this thing. But, she says it doesn't matter who it is or who's holding that championship. She's going to have to brutalize Charlotte, or she's going to have to brutalize Nikki Cross or Nikki Ash or whatever, a lot like she's had to do with Charlotte Flair recently. And like I said, Rhea said that it was her time and the crowd brings out the best in her. She feeds off the audience, and that's going to help her emerge victorious come SummerSlam. And Sarah asks this dumb question, oh, what's your game plan? They ask this fucking question every time. And I'm sure I've been guilty of it too, interviewing talents and whatever. It's one of those go-to interviewer questions. Why the fuck, especially in WWE when it's all staged, would you give away your game plan on camera? I mean, it's the dumbest question, because what are they going to say? Oh, I'm going to do this, this, and that. I mean, obviously their opponent might be watching in kayfabe, so why the fuck would they give away their game plan? And Rhea is smart enough to say, why would I do that? That would be dumb. She could be watching right now. Nikki or Charlotte could be watching the show right now. She doesn't obliterate Sarah Schreiber the same way that she does, what's his name, Kevin Patrick on Raw Talk previously, which was just... She came across mean for doing so, but she wasn't wrong because he asked a dumb question when he said, oh, what's your game plan? What the fuck is she going to say? You know what I mean? So Rhea Ripley's interview was good. But I got to go back to this one thing that she said about the triple threat thing. When she said, oh, Charlotte Flair, we all know she doesn't have the greatest luck in triple threat matches. I beg to differ. Now, we know Rhea beat Charlotte and Asuka in a triple threat match at Backlash. First of all, Rhea did not pin Charlotte Flair, so I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. Obviously, Charlotte did not win, but she wasn't pinned. Rhea has never pinned Charlotte Flair. She beat her by DQ last week on Raw, but that was it. That is the only actually two. I can think of two triple threat matches that Charlotte was involved in that she lost. That one, and the WrestleMania 35 main event, where again, she was not fucking pinned. It was Becky Lynch pinning Ronda Rousey to win that match. Those are the only triple threats that I can think of that she has lost. I'm sure there are more, but I can name 4 more right now that she has won. 1, Battleground 2015. I think it was her, Nikki Bella, and Sasha Banks. She won that triple threat match. She won a triple threat match to win the WWE Women's Championship and become the first ever women's champion before it became the Raw Women's title at WrestleMania 32. That's another one. She won the SmackDown Women's Championship in a triple threat match at SummerSlam 2017 when Becky Lynch turned heel that same night. Or maybe it was 2018. It was 2018. She won a triple threat match that night to win the SmackDown Women's Championship. She lost another triple threat at TLC later that year with Asuka and Becky at TLC. Not to lose anything. Again, she was not pinned. There were no pinfalls in the match, but she lost, but she wasn't pinned. And then she won another triple threat, I believe, at Night of Champions 2016, or Clash of Champions, or whatever the fuck they're calling it now, or at that point, when she retained her Raw Women's Championship that night, too. So she has actually had great luck in triple threat matches. There's probably more triple threats I'm not thinking of at the moment. But those are the 3 that I can think of, or 4 off the top of my head that she has won. So it's not like she's lost every triple threat match she's ever been in. So I thought that was a dumb line from Rhea. I'm sure she just thought about that off the top of her head. Like, oh, we all know she doesn't have the greatest luck in triple threat matches. No, she lost fucking 1 like 2 months ago, and that was it. She's won a lot of the major ones that have really mattered for anything. She's won all of those. So Rhea, if anything, probably doesn't have the best luck in triple threat matches. I don't even know if Rhea's ever been in a fucking triple threat aside from the one that she had at Backlash. I don't know if she had any in NXT, as far as I can remember, but anyway. So to end the show, Kayla says that the champion doesn't have to get pinned in a triple threat. Well, no shit. So doesn't really matter whose advantage it might be, because any one of them could come out on top. And then they plugged the bump for this week, and that was it. So another mundane episode of Raw Talk. Really nothing to go out of your way to watch here. I thought AJ and Omos were entertaining for as long as they were on there. Rhea's interview was largely good, and Damian Priest's interview was also pretty solid too. So I enjoy the interviews, but again, if you just kind of fish out the interviews from this show, you're probably just watching 8 to 9 minutes of content, if that. Probably even less. A majority of the show is pointless analysis from people who fucking work for the company. It's a WWE show anyway. Like they had Peter Rosenberg on Talking Smack. He doesn't technically work there, but he's one of those WWE shills, so he's not going to criticize the product. You know what I mean? It's not like it's backstage or something where they actually kind of offered some criticism of the WWE product. But no, they have the pointless analysis, they have the replays, they have advertisements, and this is all on Peacock anyway, so I'm not even really sure why they have commercials, because they never used to before recently. But that was it. So really nothing really to go out of your way to watch from this episode of Raw Talk, and I'll probably continue to watch it and review it here for the channel, just because there's really nothing the fuck else airing on Peacock at the moment. What the fuck happened with the WWE Network on Peacock? Holy shit. They have greatly decreased the amount of content, the amount of original content they were putting up on Peacock and the network. I mean, when we still had the network like 6 months ago, they were putting up shit every single fucking week. They almost had too much content on the network every single week to the point where it would take me forever to fucking review it. But nowadays, we almost have nothing. We would be lucky if we have 2 original specials a month. And they bump the shit that we have advertised anyway. We still have yet to get the Icons and Lex Luger. We have yet to get the Nexus Untold, which I don't think we're going to get anyway. I think they shelved that for some odd reason. They have literally nothing. I mean, if you look at my WWE Network and show videos, I was breaking down Dark Side of the Ring for a while. That wasn't a Peacock thing in the China documentary. But beyond that, I've only really been reviewing, and I talked about Broken Skull Sessions last week. The only 2 things I've really been reviewing are Raw Talk and Talking Smack, because those are the only original programs they have on the fucking show, on their fucking network. No 24s, no more Untolds, no more. I mean, they've had here and there, but like not as frequent as they used to. Just very weird. They still have the Broken Skull Sessions once a month, but that is like the only thing carrying Peacock at this point. And they don't even have the original, they don't even have the entire WWE library up yet from the network. They're still putting that up, and they said by SummerSlam. That's in like 3 weeks. I don't think they're going to make it by that point. But yeah, man, Peacock on the network. Thank God I'm an Xfinity customer. I just get this shit for free. Because if I didn't, I probably wouldn't even pay for it. I mean, they're really... I'd go back and watch the old pay-per-views and shit, but the organization and like the user interface on Peacock is fucking terrible. It's just awful. You throw in the fact they're not doing nearly as much original content as they used to, and even when they do, they bump it. It's not worth it, even if it is $5. Oh, $5 less. Who gives a fuck? If you're not getting what you paid for, then it's a waste of money, no matter how much it is. But nonetheless, guys, on that positive note, thank you for checking out this review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Be sure to check out my Talking Smack reviews on Sundays, my SmackDown audio reviews on Saturdays. We have #AskGSM episode 400, probably live tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. Join me, send in questions, appreciate all that. WrestleRant radio excerpts on Thursdays. We recently wrapped up reviewing all of Season 1 of Loki. Check that out. We got a Black Widow review coming at some point after everyone sees it. We do the interviews. I talked to Big E last Friday. He was great. I put up a full episode of WrestleRant Radio from 2015 yesterday. Check that out. There's content going up all the time, so just check out the stuff and be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. But yeah, the interview specifically, in the last week alone, I put up my interviews with Bayley from last year, Karrion Kross from last year, and Big E, who I talked to last week, and the interview went up on Friday, and he was awesome to chat with. So check out all this stuff. I would greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.